Hello everyone, welcome to our fourth lecture of LCC Academy, and today we are going to talk about self-compassion and compassion, how to navigate the changing world. And we want to welcome you for this lecture. I have a little announcement to do before we start. Next lecture that was supposed to happen on Wednesday on topic of neuroscience and soul unfortunately has to be cancelled due to emergency situation, but we hope to see you on Friday for our last lecture. And please give round of applause, leave some reaction to our today's lecturer, Julija Gaiduk.
Okay. We can continue. So the world is changing very fast. Anxiety is the norm now, it seems to me. That is why I have a question for everyone. Hi, online and in class. And for that question, you need to scan the QR code. There will be 2 questions about anxiety. There, okay. You need to scan this QR code. Can you see it okay? And when I start it, you will see questions, okay, on your screens. Is it working? Yeah. Okay. So the first question is how often do you feel anxious? Okay. I hope you're seeing the changes online too. If you're seeing the changes online, can you send an emoji to us? Okay. So that is the first question. I can wait half a minute longer for you for those who haven't been able to answer. Okay, there's some more. All right. Well, we don't have a never. Okay. We have some people who feel it once or twice a year, and some once a week. A large percentage every day. Okay. Now that we've established that we do feel anxiety quite regularly, let us move to another question. And this one is not a multiple choice question. Here I'm asking you to write, how do you cope with anxiety? When you feel anxious, what do you do? Try to limit to one sentence or a phrase. Mm-hmm. Okay. Some people walk, some people play with animals, rationalize and fresh air, again, walk, music, another walk, shower, another walk. Okay, I don't know. I said, do we have an idea how much longer we would need to? Okay, we can go. Okay, so as you can see, there are different ways in which we cope with anxiety, which many of us experience on a regular basis. Because it's a psychology lecture, we will talk about anxiety. We will talk about psychological concepts. Okay. And as you can see, we cope differently. Every one of us has developed with years a way to cope with anxiety. Not all of those methods are equally effective or equally productive. Okay, some are great, and the ones that I saw on the screen were great. Sometimes they're not so great. Some methods will not work for as long as we want them to work. Some methods will not work as effectively. Some will create side effects that we don't want, even though there will be less anxiety, there will be more of something else, like bad health, okay, if you use non-productive methods of dealing with anxiety. And just like there are very many different people, there are very many different brands of psychology. Okay, those of you who are psych majors, you know that. Those of you who are not, you have probably heard that. There are different kinds and brands. And the most recent brand of psychology is positive psychology. And that is the brand of psychology that focuses on how do we live a flourishing life. What will make people flourish? What is a meaningful and fulfilling life? In other words, positive means good, right? Positive psychology is looking at how can we live a good life? How can we help people live a good life? And one of the things that positive psychology explores is virtues or attitudes that will help us flourish, that will help us have a good life. And there are many different ones, and if you Google positive psychology virtues, you will see many different virtues. But today we'll focus on 3. I call them the 3 C's: compassion, self-compassion, and curiosity. The attitudes that help us flourish and help us deal with anxiety or with the stressors and with the world that is changing so fast. So let's start with the 3. Let's talk about the 3 C's. And we begin with the first C, which is compassion, the attitude towards others. Okay, the Latin word compassion means to suffer together. When we experience compassion, when we show compassion, we are suffering together with somebody else. And that involves lots of things. That involves our thoughts. When we're compassionate, we can see the pain of another person. Okay, we notice it cognitively. That involves our feelings. We are concerned for another person. We're concerned for their pain. Not only do we see that they experience pain, but we are also concerned. Okay, we don't feel super good because of their pain. We feel concerned that they're experiencing pain. Then it also involves intentions. Compassion is also intentions or motivations. Okay, we want to do something about that pain. In this, compassion is different from empathy, in that empathy is just feeling what another person is feeling. Compassion is feeling what another person is feeling, seeing what another person is feeling, but also wanting to help them. And finally, compassion involves action. So it's an attitude and an action. And just like all attitudes are feelings and thoughts that motivate action. Okay, so compassion, the action of compassion is doing something to help another person who is suffering. So that is the attitude, the positive psychology attitude, the positive psychology virtue towards other people. That is compassion. I have for you a self-assessment, a little self-assessment. It's not a full test. Just as an example to describe what compassion is, I have items from the compassion test. Okay, several items. And you can see where you are and which side are you more like. So it has questions like, I realize that everyone feels down sometimes and it is part of being human. Okay, that's one. That's a compassionate. And if you almost always experience that will make you more towards the compassion side. On the other hand, another statement, I am unconcerned with other people's problems, that I don't have as much concern for what other people do or feel and how other people feel pain. The more compassionate statement, I like to be there for others in times of difficulty. Okay, and the less compassionate statement, I think little about the concerns of others. There will be only several, 6 statements. There are more in that questionnaire that you can take if you really want to self-assess. A more compassionate statement, my heart goes out to people who are unhappy, as opposed to I try to avoid people who are experiencing a lot of pain. Okay, so compassion versus no compassion or less compassion. Now, there is now a lot of research on how compassion is good, not only for the person who is receiving compassion, So somebody who gets a compassionate response, like if you are suffering and somebody is there for you and suffering with you, that is helpful for you, right? That is helpful for your health. That is helpful for your relationships. That is helpful for your dealing with stress. We like and we flourish when we are surrounded by people who are compassionate toward us. But also compassion towards others is also good for the one who is showing compassion. It also grows resilience, helps you deal with stress, and makes your relationships better. Okay, so we want self-compassion not just for the person who is receiving compassion, but also for the one who shows compassion. Okay, so that's 1C, compassion. The second C is self-compassion. Okay, that is an attitude towards yourself. And also involves several elements. Okay, self-compassion is being kind to you. Compassion is being kind to another person. Self-compassion is being kind to yourself. Treating yourself with understanding and care, especially during times of pain, failure, or suffering. If you think to yourself, how do you treat yourself when you fail? Okay, what are the things that you tell yourself? When you're going through suffering, through a difficult time, what are the things that you tell yourself? Who is talking? Is it you? Are you talking to yourself as if you were your friend? Or are you talking to yourself as if you are your enemy or your critic? Okay, very many people in times of failure talk to themselves in very derogatory terms. They mad at themselves. Right? They tell their worst critic comes out from the depths of their brain and tells them you're a failure, you're a loser, and so on. Self-compassion is the opposite. You treat yourself as if you were your friend. The part of you that is kind comes out. The part of you that is kind to you comes out. Now, the element of self-compassion would be one, self-kindness. This is what I just described. Being warm and understanding toward yourself. Okay, yes, this is hard, what I'm experiencing. And I can treat myself with kindness, like I would treat my best friend, as opposed to like I would treat somebody I hate. Okay? Another element of self-compassion is called common humanity. And that means that we recognize that everyone struggles and everyone fails. I am not the only one who is failing. I'm not the only one who is struggling and having pain. And finally, the third element of self-compassion is mindfulness. And mindfulness is being in the emotion and allowing yourself to experience emotion, but not letting that emotion take over. Okay? Like when we're scared, a mindful response would be, okay, I am scared. Whoa, I am really, really, really scared. Okay? As opposed to, whoa, panicking, right? That is not a mindful response. On the other hand, some people deal with negative emotions like fear by suppressing them, by trying to not experience them. I'm not scared. I'm not scared. I'm not angry. Okay, they're trying to suppress them. That is also not a helpful response. Okay, that is not a self-compassionate. Neither is it a mindful response. So mindfulness is experiencing an emotion, but not being taken over by it and not suppressing it. So the three elements of self-compassion: I'm kind to myself. I understand that everybody struggles, and I spend some time with the emotion, with the feeling, without being controlled by it. Thus, I can learn to control it. Okay? If I let it be, I can learn to control it. Now, again, a self-assessment for you. You can look at which side you're on. Especially, think of yourself when you're experiencing a problem, when you're going through suffering, through a hard time, or you have failed. I try to be loving toward myself when I'm feeling emotional pain. As opposed to when times are really difficult, I tend to be tough on myself. Get your act together, you loser. Okay, that's not what you tell your good friends, unless you're mean. So that's not what you want to tell yourself, okay, when you are in trouble. I try to be understanding and patient towards those aspects of my personality I don't like. When we're failing, often things that we don't like about ourselves come up, and you can be understanding about them and patient with them, or you can be mad at them and intolerant and impatient. Okay? When things are going badly for me, I see the difficulties as part of life that everyone goes through. That is kind of common humanity element. When I fail at something that's important to me, I tend to feel alone in my failure. I'm the only one who is struggling. Why do I always have to struggle? Okay, why do bad things happen only to me? Okay, that's not a self-compassionate response. That is rather a self-pity response, which we will talk about in a minute. When I'm feeling down, I try to approach my feelings with curiosity and openness rather than suppressing them and saying I'm not feeling them, or obsessing and fixating about everything that's wrong. Okay, that's another. So those are two. Again, there are more questions in this questionnaire. Those are just examples for you to see the difference between self-compassionate responses and not self-compassionate responses. Now, there are concepts that are related to compassion and self-compassion, but are slightly different. And we already talked about empathy, and that empathy is feeling for another person, but compassion is different in that it is also wanting to help another person, not just feeling what they're feeling. Now, self-esteem could be related to self-compassion. Self-esteem is your feeling of your worth. How much am I worth? Am I a worthy person? Now, self-compassion comes out of self-esteem. Because I'm a worthy person, I'm going to treat myself kindly. Okay? Pity is understanding what another person is feeling, but it's looking down at that person. Pity involves, okay, oh, you poor thing. Okay, you're not suffering together. You're suffering above them, right? You're suffering over them. You are treating them with not with respect, with the opposite of respect, with you're like treating them from above, like you're better than them. Self-pity is related to self-compassion, but it's not. It's the opposite of self-compassion. Self-compassion is you treat yourself kindly and you try to do what's best for yourself to alleviate the suffering. Self-pity is just being lost in the suffering, is being, for me, why does it always happen to me? Again, it's also looking down on yourself. This is not really being kind to yourself. Self-pity is noticing that you're suffering, but also looking down on yourself. And the third C that I said we would talk about is curiosity. This is the attitude that will help you be compassionate and self-compassionate. And that is, you all know that word, the desire to know more. It's very interesting how we forget that childhood quality when we go through suffering, or when we are failing, or when we're going through troubles, we're not having a good time. We lose the curiosity. We become super judgmental of others or ourselves. Curiosity is a non-judgmental attitude. It's an interested exploration. So instead of, oh my goodness, this is so horrible, you treat it with curiosity. Oh, it is very hard. It is horrible. What can I learn from it? How can I explore this without judging it as bad or good? This is an opportunity to learn. Okay, curious people take everything as an opportunity to learn. So, now that we talked about these three, let us do a Kahoot. Okay, and this is a Krinja-based kind of Kahoot. You're going to choose which one is a compassionate response, which one is not a compassionate response, and so on. So it's on here. And I will start, and then you can eventually scan the QR code or enter the PIN. So this is the QR code. Now we can see how many participants we have actually. Okay, so we do have people online joining. Looks like it. This reminds me of COVID times when I was speaking into the space and I never knew how many people were listening. Okay. Do you think we move on? Okay. So we have 11 people. Let's start. So like I said, you have to choose which one is a compassionate response or not compassionate, or choose an option. All right. A friend blocked you on social media. What is a compassionate response? Can you believe she did that? Or I wonder what made her feel that way. Okay, so one of them is a compassionate response, one of them is non-compassionate. Great. Let's move on. A friend does not answer your messages. What is a curious response? They're ignoring me, they don't care, or hey, are you okay? I haven't heard from you. Okay, we always have a choice of responses, how to respond. We can make a curious choice or an anxiety-provoking choice. Okay. Someone like a choice you think is weird. What is a compassionate or curious response? Oh, really? What made you choose that? Oh, really? Why would you ever do that? It's weird. Okay, yeah, so the curious response has no judgment. Okay, and it's a great skill to learn if you want to deal with anxiety, is to not judge or to evaluate as little as possible and to explore rather than evaluate. Okay. Yourselves or others. Partner or friend says, you hurt my feelings. What would be a compassionate response? Well, that's your problem. I did not realize that. Can you tell me what felt hurtful? Okay. I work with couples and they very often say, you know, in response to you hurt my feelings, they will often say, well, it's your problem. Your feelings are too easily hurt. Okay. And that's not a compassionate or curious response. Everything is terrible. Nothing will ever get better. Is that self-pity or is it self-compassion? Okay, that is self-pity. Because it has this judgment element, nothing, hopeless element, nothing will ever get better. Self-compassion is a more curious attitude. I feel awful right now, but it's okay to have hard days. Self-pity or self-compassion? There we go. That is self-compassionate. A self-compassionate response. Okay. A plan you had did not work out. What is the self-compassionate response? I failed once, I'll fail again. Oh, that did not work out, but I learned something. Okay, great. That was the right response. Two more. I'll just scroll all day. I can't deal with life. Is it self-pity or self-compassion? This one's taking longer, huh? Okay, that is more of a self-pity because you are doing things to yourself that are not kind. Okay, yes, scrolling a little bit can be a kind thing to do if you need to relax, but not all day. especially when you're scrolling. There'll be lots of people that you're scrolling that are not kind to you. Okay, 2 more. Which is a curious and self-compassionate response? It's all my fault. Mistakes help me grow. Yeah, I wish life was a Kahoot test, huh? And this was as easy to do as it is easy to click the right answer, right? Finally, which one is a compassionate response? That is so dumb. That sounds tough. Okay. And I don't know if you want to see the winner, but you will. Number 3. Number 2. And finally, whoever used this, you stay in the room? Okay, congratulations. Okay, so this is the Kahoot, and we have, yes, I want to leave this side. We have 5 minutes left. That's why I have homework for you. Okay, how do we, now that we know what compassionate response is and what a non-compassionate response is and what self-compassion and what's curiosity, how do we grow the 3 C's? Okay, and this will be some things for you to do. There will be no magic tricks here. The difference between college education and Instagram. Okay, nobody offers magic tricks in college education. So very simple things, can change how you view life. They are very simple when they're written down on the screen. They're not so simple when you have to do that. So we begin with one tip or one thing or one behavior that you can change to help you A, deal with anxiety, B, have a more flourishing life. And this first change that needs to happen is slowing down. Okay, slower versus faster. React slower versus faster. Most of the time, we have time. Most of the time, we have 5 minutes. We do not have to react right away. When we are scared, we don't have to react right away. When our friend blocks us on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or whatever, anywhere, everywhere, we don't have to react right away. Okay, most of the time we have time. If we slow down, our reactions will be more helpful. And then as we slow down, we'll have time to pay attention to what is happening around me and with me and to me. We have time when we slow down to be more curious rather than judgmental. Okay, because when we're in a hurry, we make snap judgments. Slowing down will help us pay attention and be more curious and explore. The second thing to do as your homework to grow the 3 C's, the compassion, self-compassion, curiosity, is ask questions rather than make statements. Okay, so to yourself and to others. We're very, very fast to judge. And that is an adaptive mechanism. That is a mechanism that we need. We need to make fast decisions. But unless we're in situations of war or natural disaster, we don't have to make decisions right away. Okay, unless we're in a panic-inducing, really panic-inducing situation, in a crisis, we don't have to make decisions right away, and we can ask questions rather than make statements like, what am I feeling, as opposed to life is horrible. Okay, what does it mean to me what is happening, as opposed to they are horrible, this person is horrible. Or ask another person. If you want to be more compassionate towards others, you can ask, what are you feeling and what does it mean to you? Then it is easier to be curious, then it is easier to understand and to be compassionate. And the last thing, last change that I suggest needs to happen is exploring versus judging or evaluating. Okay, so again, instead of this is stupid or bad or mean, we're very quick to make labels, to give people labels for ourselves and for others. We can say, whoa, this is interesting. I wonder how that works. Okay, I I am super scared right now. I'm super anxious on a regular basis. We can say the non-self-compassionate response will be, oh, I am such a freak. Okay, I'm so anxious, this is horrible. Or, oh, this is interesting. I wonder how that works, that I experience anxiety on a regular basis. And because we have time, because we're exploring, we will be less anxious and will be more self-compassionate and kind. This is your homework, and we are done. Thank you for your attention. Okay, what happens next? Questions and answers?
So if anyone has questions, feel free to ask them, and we'll wait if someone from live audience, online audience has questions. I have reactions.
Okay. Are they bad? Are they good? Okay. Any questions? All is clear. Let's just go and do it.
How do you do it?
How do I do?
In your life?
How do I do this? Well, I am learning to slow down. Okay, and I am learning to not react right away. And I purposely tell myself, okay, this now you don't have to react right away. You can wait. You have 5 minutes. Okay, and then I'm learning to ask myself what is happening to me. Okay, and then as soon as my inner critic starts saying, whoa, you're this and you're that and you're so blah blah blah, because I've slowed down, I can say, oh, this is interesting. I am experiencing, my inner critic is really loud right now. And just saying this to yourself is already helpful, because it slows down the processes and it lowers the anxiety. And then you can deal with that inner critic. Then you can say, thank you very much. That was not very useful information. Can you tell me something else? Or I can listen to the self-compassionate part of me and say, okay, how can I show more kindness to myself? Yes?
Are you always like this? Does it get easier with growing up?
With growing, yes, it does get easier with growing up sometimes, also with therapy, psychotherapy, and the experiences in it is much. I can see how it could be easier for me now than it is for you to slow down, because I have seen that, when I slow down, things didn't collapse. Okay, for you, it may not be, because you haven't had this experience. Like the most of the time we have time, that I had experience with this. Okay, and that's why years helped.
How much take time to adapt to this crises, depending on the person or on the situation?
Yeah, how much time does it take to learn those? Well, I think it does. You're right. It does depend on the person and what you do with it. And some people are just naturally more compassionate and more self-compassionate, and for many reasons. What is good about this is that everybody can learn this. Some people will just need more time learning this because they had more difficult past experiences, or because they have a more sensitive left hemisphere. Right hemisphere that is yelling at them and saying, danger, 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 danger. And the left hemisphere that says, life is beautiful, is not as active. But everybody can learn this. It's just a matter of time. You can try and see.
My own question.
Uh-huh.
How do you stay curious over being judgmental? Assuming?
It also takes practice. Staying curious versus judgmental also takes practice. And I have had enough of experience to tell me that being judgmental is not helpful. So I've experienced the negative consequences of being judgmental, and then I can say, okay, I tried this, did not work, I can now try this. I can now be more curious rather than just evaluating and judging everything. And also slowing down and noticing that I tend to be very judgmental and I tend to be very critical of myself and others is also helpful. And it's not a strategy that helps. It's something that makes me more anxious. Why would I want that? There are no questions. Okay. Do we need to stay? Okay. What do I do?
Thank you, Julia. Let's give a round of applause. And send some reactions. Feel free to ask questions, and then we will either forward it to you or try to answer them. Thank you so much for joining. And as mentioned before, on Wednesday, the lecture is not happening. The next lecture will be on Friday, and that will be our last lecture. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop us email and scan the QR code that will be shown later on the screen. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.